Hi, I'm Daniela. 2 months before my wedding to Marco, my grandparents presented me with an envelope at our engagement dinner. Inside was a check for $40,000, money they'd been saving for decades to help each of their grandchildren start their married lives. I remember the weight of that moment, sitting in my grandparents' dining room, surrounded by family, holding a piece of paper that represented years of their hard work and love. "This is too much," I said, my voice trembling. My grandmother reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Your grandfather and I started saving when you were born. A little each month. It's meant to help you and Marco buy a home." My grandfather nodded, his eyes misty. "We did the same for your cousins, and we'll do the same for your brother Ethan when his time comes." I looked at my brother across the table. At 25, 3 years younger than me, Ethan had always been the wild card in our family, charming but unpredictable. "Maybe by then I'll have settled down enough to deserve it," Ethan joked, raising his wine glass. Everyone laughed, but there was something in his eyes I couldn't quite read. "You'll get there, son," my father said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Just need to find the right motivation." "Like Danny did with Marco," my mother added, smiling at my fiancé. "Sometimes the right person changes everything." Ethan's smile tightened just slightly. "Sure, Mom. Whatever you say." 2 weeks before the wedding, I had to fly to Chicago for a last-minute work conference. With vendors to pay and final arrangements to make, I asked Ethan to handle some payments for me. "I need someone I can trust completely," I told him as I handed over my checkbook and the gift money I'd deposited. "The venue needs their final payment and the caterer—" "Danny, relax," Ethan said, putting his hands on my shoulders. "I've got this. Your wedding will be perfect. I promise." I returned 3 days later to find most of the vendors unpaid and Ethan unreachable. When he finally showed up at my apartment, his eyes were bloodshot, his clothes rumpled. "Where have you been?" I demanded. "The venue called. They're threatening to cancel." "I messed up, Danny," he said, collapsing onto my couch. "I went to Vegas with some friends. Just for one night, I swear. I was going to double the money, make your wedding even better." My stomach dropped. "What are you saying?" "I lost it," he whispered. "All of it. I kept thinking I could win it back, but $40,000? My voice rose. "Grandma and Grandpa's gift? All of it?" "I'll pay it back," he said quickly. "I swear I will. I just need some time." My best friend Rachel arrived then, walking in with her key to find me standing frozen in the middle of my living room. "What's going on?" she asked, looking between us. "Tell her," I said to Ethan. "Tell her what you did." As Ethan stumbled through his confession, Rachel's expression hardened. "You need to tell your grandparents," she said firmly. "No!" Ethan jumped up. "Please, Danny, they'd never forgive me. I just need a little time. I'll figure something out." "Figure what out?" I asked. "The wedding is in 2 weeks. The money is gone. What exactly are you going to figure out?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But please don't tell them yet. Let me try to make this right." I stared at my brother, this person I'd grown up with, who I thought I knew. "You lost their life savings at a casino, and now you want me to lie about it?" "Not lie," he said quickly. "Just wait. I lost the receipt." "The receipt?" Rachel repeated incredulously. "This isn't about misplacing a lunch bill, Ethan." I felt something break inside me. "Get out," I told him quietly. "Just get out." The next morning, I sat across from my parents at their kitchen table. I'd barely slept, my mind racing with impossible calculations of how to save my wedding and how to tell my grandparents that their generous gift was gone. "He did what?" My father's coffee cup clattered against the saucer. My mother reached for my hand. "Honey, are you sure? Maybe there's been a misunderstanding." "He admitted it, Mom," I said, pulling my hand away. "There's no misunderstanding. He took the money to Vegas and gambled it all away." "Well, we'll help," my father said immediately. You can't replace $40,000, I interrupted. "And that's not the point. The point is that Ethan stole from me From Grandma and Grandpa, really. And now he wants me to cover for him. The back door opened and closed, and Ethan appeared in the doorway, looking even worse than yesterday. When he saw me, he froze. "You told them," he said flatly. "Of course I told them," I replied. "Did you think I wouldn't?" My father stood up. "Sit down, Ethan. We need to figure this out as a family." "There's nothing to figure out," I said sharply. "He stole $40,000. That's not a family problem. That's a crime." "Daniela," my mother gasped. "You can't be thinking of pressing charges against your own brother." "Why not?" I demanded. "If he had stolen from a stranger, he'd be in jail right now." "Because I'm your brother," Ethan shouted. "Because I made a mistake. A terrible mistake, I know that, but I'm going to fix it." "How?" I challenged him. "Tell me exactly how you're going to come up with $40,000 in 2 weeks." Ethan looked to our parents. "Dad can loan me the money and I'll pay him back. I'll get a second job. I'll sell my car." My father shook his head. "We don't have that kind of money just sitting around, son." "Then what about pushing the wedding back?" my mother suggested. "Just for a few months until we can—" "No," I cut her off. "I'm not rearranging my entire life because Ethan decided to gamble away my future." "I'm sorry," Ethan said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry, Danny. I don't know what else to say." "Sorry doesn't pay the venue," I replied coldly. "Sorry doesn't explain to Grandma and Grandpa why their gift is gone." There was a long silence, broken only when the doorbell rang. My mother went to answer it and returned with Marco, my fiancé. One look at his face told me he'd heard. "Rachel called me," he explained, coming to stand beside my chair. "Danny, we need to talk about our options." Ethan looked up hopefully. "You guys could still have the wedding. Maybe a smaller one or—" "That's not the issue right now," Marco said firmly. "The issue is that you stole from us, from Danny's grandparents." My father cleared his throat. "Marco, I understand you're upset, but this is a family matter." "I'm about to become family," Marco replied. "And I think Danny's right. This goes beyond a simple mistake." "What are you saying?" my mother asked anxiously. Marco looked at me, then back at my family. "I'm saying that Ethan needs to take responsibility. Real responsibility." "I've said I'm sorry," Ethan protested. "I'll pay it back, I swear." "Words," I said quietly. "Just words." "What do you want from me?" Ethan cried, pounding the table with his fist. "You want me to beg?" "Fine, I'll beg. Please, Danny, please forgive me." "I want you to understand what you've done," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "This isn't just money. This is trust. This is respect. This is the sacrifices Grandma and Grandpa made for years." "I do understand," Ethan insisted. "No, you don't," Marco said. "If you understood, you wouldn't have done it in the first place." My mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. "There must be some way to fix this without destroying our family." "This isn't about destroying family," I said. "This is about holding Ethan accountable for once in his life." That evening, Marco and I sat with my grandparents in their small living room, the same room where they'd given me the check, their faces bright with pride and love. Now, my grandmother dabbed at her eyes while my grandfather sat perfectly still, his hands resting on his cane. "We don't understand," my grandmother said. "How could Ethan do this?" I had no answer that made sense. "I don't know. He's always been impulsive, but I never imagined he could do something like this." "What about your wedding?" my grandfather asked. "All those plans—" Marco leaned forward. "Sir, the wedding is secondary right now. What matters is what Ethan did, and making sure there are consequences." My grandmother looked alarmed. "What kind of consequences?" "He needs to understand the severity of what he's done," I said gently. "And he needs to make it right. Not just with promises, but with actions." "You want to involve the police," my grandfather stated. It wasn't a question. "I think we should consider it," I admitted. "Not to punish him, but because he needs help. This isn't just about the money. It's about the gambling, the lying." The doorbell rang, and my grandmother rose to answer it. She returned with Rachel and my cousin Michael, who worked as a financial advisor. "I hope it's okay that I called them," Marco said to me. "I thought we could use some outside perspectives." Michael sat down across from my grandparents. "I've been talking with Danny about what happened," he began. "And I want you to know that I can help restructure some of your investments to recover some of what was lost." "That's very kind," my grandfather said. "But that money was set aside specifically for our grandchildren. We can't take from Ethan's future to fix this." "What future?" I asked, more sharply than I intended. "The one where he gambles away everything he touches?" Rachel placed a hand on my arm. "Danny, I know you're hurt, but nothing," I interrupted. "Everyone keeps making excuses for him. Mom and Dad want me to push back the wedding. Grandma and Grandpa are worried about his future. What about my future? What about the fact that he stole from the people who love him most?" The room fell silent. Finally, my grandfather spoke. "Bring him here," he said quietly. "I want to talk to him myself." An hour later, Ethan sat uncomfortably on the edge of the couch, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "Look at me, Ethan," my grandfather said. Slowly, Ethan raised his head. "I worked 52 years at the factory," my grandfather said evenly. "Your grandmother cleaned houses until her arthritis got too bad. We saved that money dollar by dollar for decades. Not for vacations or fancy things for ourselves, but for you children." "I know," Ethan whispered. "No, I don't think you do know," my grandfather continued. "Because if you did, you couldn't have done what you did." "I'll pay it back," Ethan said, the same empty promise he'd been repeating. My grandfather shook his head. "This isn't about the money anymore. It's about trust and consequences." "What do you want me to do?" Ethan asked, looking around the room. I took a deep breath. "First, you need to admit to everyone what you did. No excuses, no lost receipts. Second, you need to get help for your gambling. Third, you need to make formal arrangements to pay back every cent, even if it takes years." "And if I don't?" Ethan challenged. Marco stepped forward. "Then Daniela will file a police report for theft." My grandmother gasped. "Daniela, surely it won't come to that." "That's entirely up to Ethan," I replied, not taking my eyes off my brother. Ethan's jaw clenched. "You'd really do that? Send your own brother to jail? You'd really steal $40,000 from your own grandparents?" I countered. For a moment, I saw something flicker in Ethan's eyes, understanding, perhaps, that this time was different. This time, there would be no easy forgiveness, no sweeping under the rug. "I need help," he finally admitted, his voice barely audible. "I've been gambling more than any of you know. It started small, but then I couldn't stop." My grandfather nodded slowly. "That, at least, is the truth." 1 week later, I stood in a simple white dress in the community center that had agreed to host our drastically downsized wedding at the last minute. My original venue had been lost, along with the deposits for most of our vendors, but our friends and family had rallied around us. Rachel adjusted my veil. "You still look beautiful," she said. "Different wedding? Same love?" "I know," I nodded. "I just keep thinking about Ethan." "He's doing what he needs to do," Rachel reminded me. "That's what matters." After our confrontation at my grandparents' house, Ethan had finally broken down. With Michael's help, he'd enrolled in a gambling addiction program and taken out a formal loan with a legal repayment plan. He'd moved back home with our parents under strict conditions and started working 2 jobs. "Did you see his letter?" Rachel asked, smoothing a wrinkle from my dress. I nodded. Yesterday, each family member had received a handwritten letter from Ethan, not asking for forgiveness, but acknowledging the hurt he'd caused and detailing his plan to make amends. "His counselor suggested it," I said. "Part of the recovery process, apparently." "Was it good?" "It was honest," I replied. "Maybe for the first time." There was a soft knock at the door, and my father peeked in. "It's time, honey. Are you ready?" "Is he here?" I asked. My father nodded. "In the back row, like you asked." I debated whether to allow Ethan at the wedding at all, but ultimately decided that his presence under conditions was part of the path forward. As I walked down the makeshift aisle toward Marco, I saw my grandparents in the front row. My grandmother was crying, but they were different tears now. Bittersweet, complicated by everything that had happened, but still joyful. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. When Marco and I exchanged vows, for better or for worse, the words carried a new weight. We'd already faced a worse that we hadn't anticipated, and we were still standing. After the ceremony, during the small reception, Ethan approached me cautiously. He looked different, humbled, certainly, but also clearer somehow. "Congratulations," he said, keeping a respectful distance. "Thank you for coming," I replied, "and for respecting my boundaries." "I've completed my first week of therapy," he said. "It's hard, harder than I expected." I nodded. "Good. It should be hard. Danny, I know I can never fully repair what I broke," he said quietly. "Not just the money, but your trust." "No, you can't," I agreed. "But you can build something new over time, if you're willing to do the work." "I am," he said firmly. "I promise. And this time, it's not just words." Marco joined us, slipping his arm around my waist. "Everything okay here?" "We're talking about the future," I told him. "About actions and consequences." "I was just telling Danny," Ethan said, turning to Marco, "that I start my second job tomorrow. The diner isn't glamorous, but the hours work with my therapy schedule." "That's good to hear," Marco said, his tone measured but not unkind. "One day at a time, right?" "That's what they keep telling me," Ethan nodded. "And they're right." Later that night, as Marco and I prepared to leave for our modest honeymoon, a weekend at a nearby lake house loaned to us by a friend, my grandfather pulled me aside. "You handled this with grace," he told me. "More than many would have." "I was so angry," I admitted. "I still am sometimes." "Anger is natural," he nodded. "But you chose accountability over revenge, and that's the harder path." "Do you think he'll change?" I asked. My grandfather considered this. "I think he has the chance to now, and that's something." As we drove away from our wedding, smaller and different than we had planned, but somehow more meaningful, Marco reached for my hand. "Your brother has a long road ahead," he said. "We all do," I replied. "But at least now we're all walking in the same direction." 6 months later, Ethan made his first repayment to our grandparents. A small amount, but significant in what it represented. The breach of trust had cost us our dream wedding and so much more. But what remained, the truth, the accountability, the difficult path toward healing, was perhaps more valuable than what was lost. Not a perfect ending, but a real beginning. Have you ever had to hold someone accountable who was close to you? It's one of the hardest things we can do in families, choosing the painful truth over comfortable lies. But sometimes, that's exactly what love requires.